and Maryland State Delegate, representing the 46th Legislative District. She has served for 5 years on the Appropriations Committee and leader on the Environment and Transportation Committee. In addition, Delegate Lierman serves as House Chair for the Joint Committee on Pensions, is on the Joint Committee on Ending Homelessness, and founded and formerly co-chaired the Maryland Transit Caucus. Wow. She has written landmark legislation that invests in public transit, funds reading supports for our public school students, closed loopholes in paid family leave laws, prevents source of income discrimination in housing, promotes evidence-based gun violence interruption programs, and the first in our nation's styrofoam ban. She will ensure taxpayers receive the best value for our tax dollars, preventing waste and fraud, and unlocking opportunities for every Maryland resident, family, and business. Now, the format of this will be that the candidate will give a 10-minute presentation without any questions or any other comments at that point. And then after that presentation, our moderator, Paul Schwartz, will be asking the questions with a 3-minute we have here Karen Kittner, who will then alert you as the time is up. All right, we now present Brooke Lierman.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Okay, it is such an honor to be here. Thank you so much to the whole board for organizing this, to Paul, to everybody. I'm Brooke Lierman. I am thrilled to be here with you all on a wet and rainy fall morning. I had to break out the pantsuit for today. It was so chilly. But I'm Brooke Lierman. I'm a civil rights and disability rights attorney. I am a public school mom of 2. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. I am a state legislator, a leader in the House of Delegates, where I've been representing Baltimore City for the past 8 years. And I'm thrilled to be the Democratic nominee for state comptroller. So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, you know, I have traveled around the state for the past 18 months talking with so many people, with so many seniors about how to make ends meet with inflation rising. I've talked with parents, with young people who are concerned about how to care for their grandparents. I've talked with parents who are concerned about how to make sure they can take care of kids and all their kids. And all of this really leads me to understand that this is the most important state election of our lifetime. It really is. There has not in 100 years been an open seat for all 3 statewide candidates at the same time. It just doesn't happen. And one of the reasons is because there hasn't been an open seat for comptroller since 1998. Wow. It's been a long time. Yeah, think about where you were in 1998. So that is why I'm so excited to be bringing a bold new vision for how the resources of the comptroller's office can benefit the people of Maryland, right? Can really be independent advocates and servants for the people of Maryland. So the number one question, though, that I get when I am all over the state meeting with people from Ocean City and Berlin to Garrett County to Elkton to St. Mary's and everywhere in between is, Brooke, you seem like a nice person, but what is the comptroller? I want to make sure that everybody here understands how important this role is and what it can do for all of us. So I'm going to leave you with 3 things on what a comptroller is and what it can be. Number 1, I'm going to do it quickly because I only have a little bit of time. Number 1, the comptroller is one of only 3 independently elected statewide officials that we have, right? We've got the governor, the attorney general, and the comptroller. And as one of only 3 independent statewide offices, we need somebody, an elected CFO, who will embrace creative ideas, has the courage to put those ideas into action on big ideas, wealth building policies, tackling climate change infrastructure challenges, funding public schools, funding long-term care insurance programs, big ideas, to sweating the small stuff, right? To making sure it's easier to access state programs and benefits. That's what an elected CFO who's really working for the people of Maryland and working for all of you will do. Number two, and that's what I'm excited to do. Number two, the comptroller sits on a lot of very important state boards, including, of course, the State Retirement and Pension System Board and our Board of Public Works. Now, I've been on the Oversight Committee on Pensions for 8 years, and I have to tell you, when I first joined the legislature 8 years ago, our pension system was not fulfilling its duty. We were not adequately funding our pension system. It was not growing in strength. It was very concerning. So I helped pass legislation to make sure that we were adequately funding what is actuarially required every year as a state legislation to fund our pension system, and in fact overfunding, putting more money than was required to help make up for so many of the years when we didn't put in the money that was needed. So I'm proud of where our pension system is today, but there's more to do, right? We are facing uncertain economic times. We're seeing stock volatility, and we need to make sure we have a leader who understands and will prioritize our retirement savings, that they are there for our pensioners. Look, I believe that a pension is a promise, and I don't know about you, but I was raised to believe that you don't break a promise. And so I fully intend on being an active participant in ensuring that our pension is there for our retirees. And then there's the Board of Public Works, right? This is three people: the governor, the treasurer, and the comptroller. And the governor really sees, does what all the agencies want, because the governor appoints the agency heads. The treasurer is the voice of the General Assembly, because the General Assembly appoints the treasurer. So the comptroller is there for you. The role of the comptroller is to be the independent advocate, the people's advocate on the Board of Public Works, making sure that we are getting best value for each and every dollar. That means when a contract comes down for housing or schools or transportation or medical services, making sure that we're getting best value for those dollars means working with Maryland companies so the dollars stay here to grow our local economy, right? Working with our minority business enterprises to make sure that we're working with our immigrant-owned businesses, our businesses that are owned by people with disabilities, our Black-owned businesses, right? Making sure that that money, when we're spending our money, that we're looking out for long-term effects too. When we build a school, let's not build it in a floodplain, right? Let's make sure that we're thinking long-term about the sustainability and financial resilience of our dollars. That's what our comptroller should be doing, and that's what I'll be doing, to make sure that we are getting best value for each and every dollar. And then the third job of the state comptroller, I'm sorry to remind you all on a rainy Monday morning that I am running to be the next tax collector, or the tax refunder if it's a good year. So there too, though, there's so much that we can do to make it easier to pay taxes, to make sure that you are getting the support and the help that you need, to make sure we're cracking down on scammers who are taking advantage of older adults and seniors, right? Who are trying to prepare their taxes and then running away with the money. Making sure we're cracking down on those folks as well. And I bring, because I'm a litigator and a civil rights attorney, that's the kind of work that I do, is making sure that we're rooting out those bad actors, and that's the eye that I'll bring to the comptroller's office. Improving our tax IT, I know we're going to talk about this in a question later, and making it easier on all of you. So at the end of the day, the comptroller's office is really the first office in our government that sees the numbers, that tell the stories of how our Maryland families, our older adults, our retirees, our businesses are doing. And I'm dedicated to being a comptroller that makes sure that all those numbers look good for all of us. Now, why for all of us? Well, I want you to know that my core value and belief is something that a man named Paul Wellstone used to say, a U.S. Senator who I worked for. He used to say, we all do better when we all do better. And that is what I believe. And each and every day that I'm your comptroller, that's what I'll be working to put into practice. So I'm thrilled to be here today with you. I want to applaud the work that NARFE does, working to bring all of you together to be a strong voice for retirees. I'm excited to work with you. You know, I want to say this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end, right? If I have the honor of being your next comptroller, I look forward to regular meetings with NARFE to talk about the challenges that your members are facing and how we can address those from the comptroller's office. So thank you for having me today. Thank you for organizing this, and I look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Okay. I am Paul Schwartz, the chair of the Maryland NARFE State Legislation Committee, and thank you for being here. I will jump right to the questions. The first question I have for you is, the state of Iowa recently passed a tax reform package that fully excludes all retirement income from state income taxation, including federal retirement annuities under both CSRS and FERS. My question is, if Iowa can do this, in your view, what are the hurdles preventing Maryland from doing the same thing and, in so doing, making Maryland a more attractive state in which to retire?
Thank you for that question. I think this question really digs into the meat of the challenge that we're facing in the state, right? What can we do to make Maryland the best state in the nation to retire in? Understanding that we don't control Mother Nature, right? I'm sorry we can't be Florida. But what can we do financially to make it the best place to retire? And that's an issue that I'm dedicated to solving. So one, it's how can we make sure that we're reducing the tax burden, especially on our middle income and lower income retirees? And how can we make sure that we're valuing those pension dollars so that they last longer, right? So, and are not a liability to people, but that they are, in fact, you all do get to recognize the full value of them. So these are the questions that I'm excited to solve. We have to make sure that when we're looking at how we move to lowering or eliminating taxation on pensions for middle and lower income retirees, that we're making up that money so that we don't decrease services for retirees, right? We want to make sure that our services stay intact while also the money can be there as well. And that's money, that is a challenge that we need to work through together with our comptrollers and with the General Assembly, who is in charge of all tax policy. So what we can do from the comptroller's office is work with all of you to pinpoint and identify the crux of where the money cutoff should be in terms of taxing and not taxing our retirement accounts, and then use that data to help inform policy making so we have that we're lowering taxes, maybe even eliminating taxes on some of that retirement income while also maintaining the level of service. I also want to say that we need to make sure we're getting better services and better bang for our buck. Because really when we pay for things, if we're getting great services, we don't mind paying, right? So we have to make sure that whether it's transit or parks or housing or medical insurance, you're getting what you need and you deserve from the money that we're paying in our taxes. Thank you. I saw the red card go up.
The next question is, one of the justifications for not moving forward on decoupling state and federal tax returns has been the need for additional resources for the Comptroller's Office to handle the additional responsibilities necessitated by no longer being able to rely on IRS data if decoupling occurs. What is your vision for modernizing the Comptroller's Office to take on any future responsibilities effectively and efficiently?
This gets to the crux of huge challenges that we're facing in the Comptroller's Office, is that we must modernize our IT systems. There are several systems the Comptroller's Office uses. There's a taxing system, and we're working towards modernizing it now through a system called Compass. There's the accounts payable system, which is the financial management information system. You should know that that system was created shortly after I was born, and uses COBOL and is on a mainframe system. So that is where we are in the Comptroller's Office right now in the state of Maryland, and I don't think I need to say to all of you who are shaking your heads that that is unacceptable. acceptable, right? What it means is we can't be nimble, we can't decouple, we can't track information, we can't be transparent with Marylanders, there's a lack of accountability, there's no dashboard to look at where our money's going and how it's flowing. All of this must change. And we need a leader in the Comptroller's office who is going to bring groups like NARFE, our IT groups, our business groups, and everybody, our MBEs, everybody together to say, what does the system need to do? Let's envision what we need a perfect system to do, and then let's go out and build it, right? We need to create that, and we will. That is my solemn promise to you, is that is one of my #1 priorities, because without that, we can't do so many other things that we need to be able to do from the Comptroller's office. So I'm excited to work on that and look forward to doing it and including NARFE in the process.
Excellent. We welcome that opportunity. The 2017 federal tax plan eliminated or reduced many middle-class tax deductions, resulting in a windfall of several $100 million for our state coffers. When Comptroller Peter Franchot was asked whether any of that windfall should be returned to Maryland taxpayers, he indicated that his preference was to place it in the rainy day fund. Since that windfall exists each and every tax year and will do so every year, the eliminated deductions are not reinstated. My question is, what is your preference for use of that money?
Absolutely. Well, at the end of the day, each and every dollar needs to return to taxpayers. The question is just in what form, right? Is it returning to taxpayers by keeping our state financially solvent, which means keeping an adequate amount of money as is statutorily required in the rainy day fund? Does it return to taxpayers in services, right? Are we increasing the services that you all need and rely on, that we all need and rely on? Is it money that's getting to local governments, right, to make sure that our local governments are doing the work in libraries and building out broadband? Or is it money that needs to be returned to folks in the form of tax cuts and tax breaks? So this year, I was proud to be part of the General Assembly where we passed several tax cuts, actually biggest tax cuts we've passed in decades, when we cut taxes on diabetes products, on some dental care products and more, and we passed the largest senior tax credits in decades. Right? We passed the senior tax credit so that up to $1,500, if you made up to $150,000, $1,500 could go back. So that kind of work, getting money back to people, making sure it's in your pockets, is essential, and that's where we should be making sure that that money goes.
Thank you. Next question. What is your view of dynamic scoring as it relates to prioritizing state expenditures? Specifically, what is your view of fiscal notes, basically applying costs and revenue loss over a 5-year period, rather than looking at the long-term impact of the expenditure as it relates to economic growth?
So I'm chuckling because only federal retirees would ask about dynamic scoring. Like, I would love to know how many members here worked at the Congressional Budget Office, right? Because that is where this whole notion of dynamic scoring comes from. Of course, I used to work at the Center for American Progress in DC, where we talked about the need for dynamic scoring. Look, I think dynamic scoring is a really exciting and powerful tool. And at DLS, the Department of Legislative Services, which scores, right, in federal terms, scores the bills, they don't do dynamic scoring unless it's specifically asked for in huge pieces of legislation, like when the Amazon tax cut proposal went through. But one of the things I'm excited about in the Comptroller's office is thinking through having the ability to do more of that fiscal outlook and using those macroeconomic factors to think about doing some sort of dynamic scoring when we're looking at legislation that would directly impact revenues and expenditures, right, in the state. And that's an exciting proposal, but again, something that we need to be able to update our IT systems to be able to do more accurately, right? So I'm excited about the idea of dynamic scoring. The federal government doesn't rely on it right now. Congress doesn't use dynamic scoring for all of its bills. It uses traditional scoring. DLS in the state is not in a place where it could do dynamic scoring for every bill, but I think that certainly for certain large-scale initiatives, it's something that I'm excited to be able to do.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question is, would you be in favor of a tax incentive to encourage the purchase of long-term care insurance at a younger age and to enable those with long-term care insurance to afford to keep it as a means of keeping them in their homes longer before entering nursing homes, which, as you well know, accounts for most of the Medicaid impact on the state budget?
Yes. So I only have 3 minutes, but this is a really important question that I want to delve more deeply into in the future with you all. I will just share that my mother has Parkinson's with dementia, and I am her power of attorney, and so I have, unfortunately, quite a lot of experience on dealing with some of these issues over the past few years. And I will also add that we are blessed because she had signed up for private long-term care insurance well before she got sick. And now it is difficult for me to imagine what we would do without it. And it has become very clear to me just how essential it is. So yes to a tax credit, but I don't think that's enough because it's so important. And when we do a tax credit, there's a chance that because there's more money available, that the companies will simply raise their rates to make up for how much that tax credit is. So we need to have a real conversation as a state, including all of you, about how we can ensure that people can access long-term care insurance that's affordable and that will provide for them in the long term to keep them in their homes, to help them, maybe paying for aids, or like my mom, it helps pay for her assisted living where she lives, right? So whatever you're going to use it for, we need to make sure that people understand how important it is to have and that we make it affordable to get. And so I will just say personally, that's a very important issue to me, but also macroeconomically and looking at our population, it's such an essential issue and we need to take it more seriously moving forward.
Let me add to that question, and put a cap on the premiums.
Yeah, and put a cap on the premiums. There you go. Yes.
The homeowner's tax credit is currently limited to low income. Would you be in favor of expanding the homeowner's tax credit to those over 65 as a means of helping to stem the tide of senior migration to more tax-friendly states?
Yes, absolutely, up to a certain dollar amount. Yep, absolutely. I don't think if you have 5 homes in Ocean City and a yacht, and probably you don't need the homeowner's tax credit, but yes, absolutely up to a certain amount, 100%.
Excellent. Okay. And this is my last question, and it's close to my heart. As a high-ranking state office holder, would you vocally support moving the Martin Luther King Jr. national holiday from the middle of January to Election Day in November to better honor Dr. King's efforts to protect voting rights and to obviate the need to create an additional national holiday?
Whoa.
It is such an interesting question. And, I know there have been articles written about this, and it's a really interesting proposal. So I think this is something that it's really important to have a large-term discussion about. I don't think this is the type of issue that one person should decide, right? Because it's a big issue. I will say I love the idea of honoring Dr. King's legacy through encouraging voting, but I also love honoring Dr. King's legacy with a day of service, right? And having more service. And I'm excited that, folks like Wes Moore, who I'm excited to be running with, understand the need for service. I actually did AmeriCorps. I did a year of service. And so I love the idea of raising up service as well. So I think it's I think it's a really interesting idea and a great thing that we need to have a state discussion on writ large.
And would you be willing to share that view with our congressional reps?
Sure. I think they would agree that we should have a discussion. That's something to have a discussion about. But I also think, it's also important to involve Dr. King's family and others in those types of discussions because it is such a big change.
Thank you. That's the last of my questions.
I was so quick. Look at that. Can I just say thank you?
Yes.
I passed, yeah. Well, look, I just want to say thank you again.
No, you have a few minutes,
Okay.
so if you would like to go ahead and finish up
Sure.
the time that we have.
Yeah, if there's
Yes.
anything you want to add to any of these well thought out questions.
Thank you. Well, look, I just want to say thank you again. This is such an important and essential election, and I promise you that 8 out of 10 of your neighbors don't even know that they're going to vote for a new comptroller.
That's true.
So that is true, right? So I need your help to spread the word, right? This is one of only 3 independently elected statewide offices we have. We need a leader who's going to be there listening with you, being present and proactive around the state. Did you know there are 12 field offices that the comptroller has all over the state of Maryland?
Yes.
A few of you, we need to make sure that those offices, they're all over. We need to make sure that those offices and the resources in those offices are getting out to communities, right? To senior centers, to church groups, to fraternities, sororities, getting out to everybody so that people understand, how to pay taxes, systems they can work with, how to start a business, all of that, how to save for retirement, right? Financial literacy programming. This is all about building a more financially resilient state. And at the end of the day, that's what our elected CFO should do. So I truly hope that I can earn your support in this election. This is going to be such an essential election, and I hope between now and Election Day, you'll consider going out and spreading the word, letting people know that you met me, letting people know you learned about me. Please feel free to visit my website. You can always email me at brooke@brookelierman.com, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you between now and November 8th, winning on November 8th, and then working together to build a better Maryland in the future. So thank you all so much for having me. Thank you.
Delegate, we want to give you this commemorative coin for NARFE, and NARFE will be with whatever you have said together and making sure that you follow through with it for the rest of the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I love it.
Okay.
Thank you.